Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Jeremy, and today I'll be walking you through how to use the data analysis tool. The content that we will use for this will be grade 10, unit 3, specifically the Russian Revolution. Our objectives for this video is to analyze data using historical purpose. Let us begin. When looking at the data analysis tool, we need to look at the steps. There are 5 steps in total. 1, we need to source the information. 2, we need to note down our observations. Then we need to make our inferences in step 3. Step 4, we evaluate everything we've done and specifically look at the purpose and limitations of the data in front of us. And then we look and wrap it all together to try to analyze the historical significance. Why do we even analyze data? Data can be presented in a variety of ways. We could have a bar graph, a line graph, a pie chart. There are tons of ways to do this. Statistics and tables are also ways that we can look at data. By the end of this video, you should be able to use this data analysis tool for any data that you come across. Our question for today will be, what were the short-term and long-term effects of Stalin's collectivization in Soviet states? And we're looking at a data from roughly 1933, and let's take a look at what we need to start with. So if we're looking at this tool, we need to look at a couple of parts first. The first question is, what is the title? So the title here is going to be Average Number of Daily Direct Losses by Month, Ukraine 1933. I would like to know then who created this data chart. This is a bar graph, so who created it? And I don't really see that here, so I would probably write unknown if someone asks, well, who's the creator? I'm not really sure. What dates do we see though? We definitely do see some dates. We see a period of time that's giving us a really good chronological background here. We see 1933 and we see the months of the year ranging from January to December of that year. This is really going to help us with our context as well, just so that we can really situate ourselves in history. And what place are we looking at? Is another thing to really look at geography. And we know that this is going to be either from or about the Ukraine. So what else is here that might help us understand? Sometimes you might have context like we do here, and that could be very helpful. So when you look at a context, it's usually here to help you better understand the data. And in this case, the context is titled Daily Loss of Life Due to Famine by Ole Wolowagna. So let us look at how we wrote this up. We saw that it's a bar graph. And remember, we're just sourcing what we see. We're not adding anything else. It's just our sourcing. So we know it's a bar graph. We know the title. We don't really know who created it. So you could write unknown or no known creator. And we could see that the location is in Ukraine. And we also need to know our dates and our general timing. And so this is focusing on the year of 1933 between January to December. And we also have a context, which is helping us really understand the data. And we gave the context as well. So that's just our sourcing information. The next step is going to be to look at the data itself and actually put down our observations. What are we noticing? What can we start writing down about this? So the first question I would ask is, what is actually being presented here? What's being illustrated? And this is when I would consider, what exactly am I looking at? And what is this data trying to tell me? One of the ways to do this is to look at the key or the axis. So there's not really a direct key here, but I do have the axis here. So if I look at the x-axis, which is at the bottom here, it's telling me that I should pay attention to these months, that something's going on in the months. So January to December. And if I look at the y-axis, I'm noticing that there are numbers that are going upwards. So we start at 0, but we go up to 30,000. So if I look at the context once more, this might help me. The context is really going to say that the bar graph is illustrating the change over time, but in the average losses by month. What losses? So according to the author of this context, Joseph Stalin's plan for collectivization of agriculture had negative impacts on Ukraine. And we're seeing this because this is a wonderful help as well. We're seeing that as the months went on, there was a dramatic increase in starvation and loss of life. And what we're observing is that we're seeing this really massive rise. But then we're also seeing a decrease as the months go on, but there was a real big spike and peak here. So this is going to be really helpful for us as well. Remember, use everything in front of you. Everything in front of you is there to help. So if we pay attention to this bar graph, we're seeing some patterns, which is going to lead us to step 3. So we're looking here, we put down what we noticed on the x-axis, what we noticed on the y-axis, and then we also added in some of the context that really helped us out to really figure out, well, what else is going on in this chart? When we think of the next step, we should be thinking about how do we understand and make inferences based on this data. So now that we have all our annotations on the data, on the context, how do we make sense of all of this? Well, let's look at our annotations. What kind of patterns or relationships are we noticing here? When I look at this data, I see that the number of daily losses by month significantly increased between February and June of 1933, nearly reaching 30,000. And according to the side chart here, it reached 28,000. So that's a big peak. But then we notice that the numbers start to decrease as the year goes on. And by December, it was actually less than what it was in January. These are just based on what we're getting here. So we're noticing that, yes, there was a massive peak, but then we start seeing a decrease in numbers as well. So what does this all mean now? Now that we've broken everything up, we need to really evaluate everything that we've been noticing. And one of the first things to do is think about our other steps and look at our annotations. Based on the first 2 steps, we can see that this data is trying to illustrate the loss of life in Ukraine during the year 1933, month by month. And that's from our title, and that's definitely from our analysis of what we see. The context further helps us out by providing even more information, and it connects the data with Stalin's collectivization of agriculture and the widespread death due to forced starvation. So that's really our purpose. We have our purpose already based on what we noticed from our other steps. But there are definitely some limitations. I have tons of questions still. I only looked at just one piece of data. I feel that there's so many things that it doesn't tell us. For instance, why did the number of losses by month decrease after July 1933? How were other Soviet states affected by Stalin's collectivization of agriculture? This chart definitely tells us a lot. It gives us immediate effects of this collectivization. But we also might be lacking some long-term effects. We don't see everything here. So once again, this is just one piece of evidence that we would use, but we would need something else to corroborate the information because I'm left with tons more questions. But look at all the answers we already have. So let us put everything together. Our main question was, what were the short-term and long-term effects of Stalin's collectivization in Soviet states? We only looked at one piece of data, but in that piece of data, we see a lot of things. So in the bar graph titled Average Number of Daily Direct Losses by Month, Ukraine 1933, the numbers of daily losses in Ukraine significantly increased between February and June of 1933, nearly reaching 30,000 at the peak. And that was from when we were looking at this is our sourcing and our observations put together. The numbers started to decrease in July, and by December were below the number of losses in January. The context provides even more information by connecting the data with Stalin's collectivization of agriculture and the widespread death due to forced starvation. The data illustrate the immediate effects, but more information is needed for causation or the long-term effects. So we are noticing that we're putting all of the steps together to really answer number 5. I hope this was helpful to you and that you feel more comfortable using the data analysis tool, and I'll see you next time.